This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
राधे जाने के लिए नहीं, भेजने के लिए आया है।
कबालिडा।
और तेरे हिस्से की बिरयानी हम सब मिल बांट कर खाएंगे और बोलेंगे ईद मुबारक।
इसमें किक है, किक 200 कर तो आराम
से। एक्सेलेंट, बहुत मजा आया। एंड मल्टीप्लेक्स में सीटी और तालियां केवल सलमान की पिक्चर में देखने को मिलती है। और
आई लव यू सलमान।
Wanted in 2009, Dabang a year later, Ek Tha Tiger in 2012, followed by Kick, then Bajrangi Bhaijaan in 2015, Sultan in 2016, and don't forget Race 3 and Tube Light in between, or Bharat in 2019. Eid in Bollywood always belonged to one man, Salman the Bhaijaan Khan. Not this year though. As if all the gloom and doom over COVID's second wave was not enough, Eid was a washout for all the hardcore fanatics of Sallu Bhai. Failing to find a suitable window for a pandemic-free mega theatre release, Salman's latest, Radhe, Your Most Wanted Bhai, had to adopt a hybrid model, meaning a theatrical release worldwide and a digital one in India, something no Bollywood A-lister has ever done. I do not know if this is any consolation, but even Indian superstar Rajnikant's film shoots had to be cancelled after members of his film crew tested positive in Hyderabad. Come to think of it, COVID-19 played such a bad villain that Rajni Thalaiva also tore up his call sheet and decided against a much-awaited political foray. Weeks of lockdown over 2 years has hit the film industry hard. No shoots, no theatre releases, massive rollovers, the budgets are going bonkers. For the fans, it has meant no midnight queues for that first day, first show ticket. No sitting as per your convenience. Seat numbers be damned. No group dancing, singing, or thunderous clapping the first time the larger-than-hero appears on screen. No siti bajawing, shirt ripping, or shrieking your guts out in a single-screen theatre or even a multiplex with fellow fans and fanatics. It's ditto down south. No pouring of milk on life-size cutouts. No pujas or noto kahar. All the madness and the masala, the high emotional quotient and collective euphoria, gone. Fade to black at the click of a button. As the Radhe numbers trickle in, some say 42 lakh viewers watched the film on the pay-per-view platform on the first day itself. It's clear that it has been a dismal start when compared with other Salman Eid releases. It's 28th of May, 2 Fridays since Eid. You're listening to the Morning Brief from the Economic Times. I'm Arijit Barman. But why then are some calling this a masterstroke that only Salman Khan could have pulled off? A bold new experiment, almost like a trailer on how we will watch films, even blockbusters, in the days to come. At the comfort of our homes, sitting on our favorite couch, or possibly even on the mobile. Really? Has COVID truly killed the cinema star? Will my favorite movie theatre become a relic as our home becomes the new box office? I've invited two very special guests to this podcast to help decode these existential questions that I have for me as well as my listeners. Filmmaker Dibakar Banerjee, the auteur, behind some of my personal favorites including Oye Lucky Lucky Oye, Khosla Ka Ghosla, and the recently released Sandeep or Pinky Farrar, a thinking man's director who has seamlessly experimented with different mediums and platforms, from the big screen to the OTTs. Joining him to deep dive on new release strategies and the future of movie watching as well as making them, Hyderabad-based environmental engineer turned film producer Shobu Yarlagadda, CEO, Arca Media Works. The world, of course, knows him as the maverick who produced Bahubali, arguably among the biggest blockbuster India has ever seen. Dibakar, Shobu, welcome to the Morning Brief. Let me come to you first, Shobu, and start by asking, what's on top of everyone's mind. A Salman Khan film, an out-and-out masala action flick, just got released in India, just got released through a hybrid model. It was theatrical worldwide and digital in India. Would you say this is a significant milestone for Indian cinema, especially the way we watch or consume films?
Hi, Arijit. It's definitely a landmark point, but I don't think it would be the way forward, especially in India, because this is only, I believe, it's primarily because of COVID. And once the COVID scenario eases out and theaters come back to normal, films like Radhe and big blockbusters will find their audience mainly in theaters and subsequently in the OTT and streaming platforms. I don't think pay-per-view, simultaneous pay-per-view along with theatrical release will be a phenomenon in India anytime in the near future. Primarily because I think the multiplex owners will not allow, multiplex operators will not allow that to happen. And also, it is not yet proven how the pay-per-view will be accepted by the Indian audience.
Correct.
Yeah. So
it's
think
too early to take a.
Absolutely, it's very early. But having said that, Radhe has done a wonderful experiment, and I think it is definitely the future will lean towards it, but not immediately.
But it's not the first ever movie that is getting released on an OTT, right? I guess what is different this time around is a Bollywood A-lister's big budget film is getting released in this fashion. The scale and size coupled with this release strategy is, I guess, what is causing the heightened chatter.
Absolutely. In the earlier, Kamala Hassan had tried releasing one of his films in this model through DTH and theaters, but theater owners were up in arms and they never let it happen. And I think the same scenario will play out next time when here it happened. So, there were no theaters right now in the market open. So there's really not much for the theater owners to say. But pay-per-view is a new phenomenon, and Indians, to understand it and pay for something, I think we will, whether it's a Salman Khan film or a small film, we will take some time to accept that.
Understood. We'll break down the challenges in a bit, but I want to get Dibakar in and get his perspective, especially his personal journey with his latest film, Sandeep or Pinky Farrar. Dibakar, this film, it was originally planned for a theatrical release last year. COVID struck us, so it got pushed by a few months. Then it got released around March of 2021 of this year. But COVID struck again. And finally, this month, it began streaming on an OTT platform. Has it been an agonizing wait?
I won't call it agonizing, but I'll definitely call it, how shall I put it? I'll definitely call it a bit of a downer when sort of, as Varun Grover, my writer, he said that, Sandeep or Pinky Farrar is the only film jisko COVID 2 baar hua. So it's one of those unfortunate ones who had COVID and then had COVID again. And we've had many we've heard cases like that. So I think what happened to us was beyond our control.
Correct.
So in post analysis, when one answers, we attribute a lot of agency to our thoughts and actions, which was not present when things happened.
Okay.
So basically, we were leading up. We were for distribution reasons and for reasons of us waiting for one or two of Arjun and Pariniti's theatrical releases to do well in 2019. We had, the studio had delayed the release of an outlier like Sandeep or Pinky Farrar, because they thought that a vanilla big ticket theatrical release of their other commercial films will create an environment which will help and kind of provide a slipstream, so to speak, for Sandeep or Pinky Farrar to coast on,
Understood. But your first choice was always a theatrical opening.
Well, yes, I mean, it was my choice, actually. In fact, Adi Chopra called me up and he said that, look, we are ready. This is early 2019, I think, that, look, we are ready. And what do you want? I mean, I'm asking you. I mean, would you prefer a theatrical or would you prefer an OTT? Because, you're the kind of director who I know that a lot of, the Amazon, Netflix and all such OTT platforms and their audiences are kind of connected to, So I said, I want theatrical because I knew that Sandeep or Pinky Farrar was a kind of a family viewer in a kind of a woke, slightly grown-up sense of the word. And I just wanted, 20-somethings, 30-somethings to come with their partners, with their spouses, with their friends, and with their parents to come and watch the film together in a collective environment in the hall. And I knew that within a few weeks of the theatrical release, whatever be the fate of the film will go to OTT and sort of, find its own audience over there. But I genuinely wanted a theatrical release because we are creatures of our past. And culturally, I have been trained and it has been ingrained in me. And the high of the theatrical release, the rush of people going in and coming out, that vanilla world that I know, the world of the past, is still strong in me, So one wants that kind of a rush. One wants that kind of a talk point for your film. One wants people to go to cinema halls and see your films. And one does want to see the hoardings of your films on flyovers and on the roads, because ultimately that's why you make films. You make it to some extent for your own vanity, for your own ego, for your own sense of, how well-known you are and how good the film is and all that. It's a feeding system. So
it's interesting you say that, because a lot of my friends who are, just starting out as filmmakers or part of the ecosystem would say, yeah, it's a great, thing to work for all these OTTs, but there's no fame. Fame comes only if you have theatrical releases.
It's not true. It's just that when we say...
In India, at least in India.
Yeah. It's just that when we say fame, it means we have been accustomed to think of fame and acceptance in some different terms. That's what I believe. And it's another world. And we are at the crossroads of stepping into another world. And we are the generation who are extremely fortunate who make the change. We are the only generation who will know the past and the present and the future. We are the only generation who would have read books and Kindle. We are the only generation who would have written on sort of, notebooks and typed on devices,
Very interesting. Yes.
So we are that transitory generation, and it's a wonderful, lucky position in history, completely accident of birth. But
correct.
Adi asked me, you wanted to be so I said theatrical because I wanted that. So that's how it started.
Right.
And then when COVID came, we realized that it's going to be curtains. So in fact, we had released our trailer, and then suddenly, the way sort of, the COVID wave surged, and it looked like, it was looking pretty bad. And then we stopped.
Yeah.
And then the thing is that you are speaking to the director of Khosla Ka Ghosla and Oye Lucky Lucky Oye and other
Correct.
such things. And I have sort of, always kind of survived on the fringe. And my films have kind of somehow survived despite everything, because let's face it, they have not been in any sense of the word huge blockbusters. In any sense of the word, they have sort of, earned piles and piles of, revenue. In any sense of the word, they have not been what you called mega hits. They have been just, cult hits, fringe hits, good hits, something like that. Some of them have not been hits at all, And what has happened is that after the theatrical, earlier, 10, 15 years earlier, when I started out, the satellite and the television life gave my films the second wind and the second life that ensured their permanence in some ways in the cultural zeitgeist, let's say, of the current times. Let's say people remember those films.
देखिए रिश्ते सिनेप्लेक्स प्रीमियर कुछ कुछ होता है 17 जून शनिवार रात 7 बजे सिर्फ रिश्ते सिनेप्लेक्स पर।
टेलीविजन पर पहली बार विजय द मास्टर को बाय एनसीसी रविवार 30 मई रात 8 बजे जी सिनेमा पर सीने में सिनेमा।
So I think, in my opinion, over the last 30, 40 years, theatrical in many ways and in many combinations has existed side by side with ancillary viewing mechanisms like television, like satellite, like DVD, like VHS, and today it's the OTT platform.
Right.
And my heaven would be that it remains so that we enjoy theatrical when we want to, and we enjoy OTT when we want to, so that as a consumer, I can
have
watch
the best of both worlds.
I must. Otherwise, it will be monopolized. And the moment it's monopolized, quality will go for a toss.
Correct. What are the unique challenges of a pay-per-view model in a cost-conscious market like India? Do you think only big-budget films can potentially pull it off, provided all other exhibition options are unavailable? Only then will hardcore fans pay on top of their OTT subscription for an individual movie, like they do sometimes in the West with sports.
Absolutely, that is one of the bigger hindrances. Paying pay-per-view when you have to pay 250 rupees for a film for within a limited window of time. I think people are not accustomed to that. That is definitely a hindrance. Also, in India, we as one of our biggest recreational activities is going out to the theater.
Correct.
Going out to a movie with friends, family, and everybody else, like Dibakar was saying, and although we choose which films to go to, but still that is one of the biggest activities that we have. We like in Western societies, in developed worlds, we don't have multiple options of recreational activities. For a common man, mostly the biggest and the cheapest possible avenue to go out and have a good time is visiting the theaters. So especially like a Salman Khan film or a big or an extravagant big budget film, or a film that everybody's talking about and saying it's a great film to go and watch. I think people would still prefer stepping out and still prefer the movie experience for some kind of films, for a certain kind of films. So I think in India definitely the theaters will be there. Will take a long time to go away. I think they will not go away. I don't think they will ever go away. They will learn to coexist along with other mediums like television and OTT, and the windows might start shrinking more and more. Definitely, but I don't know again whether there will be day-date release on both the platforms on cinema and OTT or cinema and pay-per-view. I think that is still, like I said earlier, it is definitely a little way off because there will be definitely a lot of resistance from multiplex operators because they see it as an erosion of their revenue, and also for film producers. From a production producer's perspective, we really the upside is in theatrical release. Like if I release it in theaters and it does well, I see an upside. And for all, and movie business is a risk is a business where you are taking a risk and taking a chance. And when there is no upside, there is very little. I mean, it's a downer.
It's a downer. Yeah. It's a disincentive then.
Doing it because there's an upside.
So you're saying, as a producer who always has to keep a sharp eye on the commercial side of things, it is almost impossible to recover costs of a big budget movie, say like a Bahubali, which hundreds of crores of budget. Recover that cost in a pure play per view model.
Yes, at least I would think, at least as it stands right now, I think it's difficult to recover costs on a pay-per-view model and see an upside on it.
So clearly, from your, the way I understand it, you as a producer would have probably cringed or hesitated to release Bahubali 2 on OTT.
Absolutely.
Right? But
Absolutely.
say, what's happening in Hollywood? We are now even seeing massive movies like, say, Wonder Woman, 1984, simultaneously debut in theaters and also on OTT platforms or Warner.
In theaters and on HBO Max.
The Warner Brothers also actually made a massive announcement saying that their entire theatrical slate through 2021 will actually see simultaneous releases. That means Matrix 4, Dune. You think sooner than later, this kind of release strategy will have a far bigger and long-term repercussions on the industry across geographies?
Yes, definitely. Going forward, there will be multiple variations now. Earlier, it was very clear. There is a theatrical window, there is a OTT window, there is a satellite window. Now all of that is getting mashed up. Everybody is looking at how do I maximize my revenues and what is the best way I can maximize my revenues. Is it just going directly to OTT, forget theatrical, or is it because if you go to theatrical, I need to spend on prints and publicity, which is again a substantial cost. If I go directly OTT, I'm avoiding that cost. Do I go just directly to theatrical, or do I believe that this film has the potential to hold through COVID in this current situation and hold and then pull audience to the theater? Does it have that kind of a potential? Do I believe in that? And do I see an upside in holding on to that? Or do I just go for a pay-per-view right now and wash this film off my hands and then move on to the next project? So there are multiple situations, multiple dilemmas, so to say, that a producer or a production house or a studio is having to deal with. And depending on what kind of strengths you have, like if I have Disney has Disney Plus with them, they're leveraging that. It might not actually make money for them, but it is adding subscribers to or bringing them visibility to the
some
platform.
traffic to them. Yeah.
Traffic to them. So is that what I'm going to compromise versus box office revenues? Am I going to compromise my box office revenues to build a platform for myself? Depending on their individual strengths and depending on their individual, each they has to decide what is it that I'm going to that is
good for their film. But why I'm asking is because this kind of strategy, Dibakar, challenges the conventional notion that blockbusters or extravagant movies which are high on spectacles, VFX, action, are best watched in a theater, which gives you a feeling of community and escape. It's an out-and-out immersive experience. And as both you as well as Shobu said, it's an outing for everyone in the family, and especially in a country which is bereft of too many options. But if you have simultaneous releases, the whole idea is challenged.
Well, the thing is, I think human society and its consumption of entertainment, which is a key social ritual, is not simple. It's not because we want to see a film that we want to see a film. Sometimes we go to see a film because our spouse is going to see a film and we are going along reluctantly. And then when we see the film, it's not a reluctant, and we are not reluctant anymore. Sometimes we go with a gang, sometimes we go with a family, sometimes we go for a date, and sometimes, and many times, we go because we really want to see the film. Sometimes we go to see a film because we are depressed. I remember, many, many years back, a friend of mine had passed away, and two of us, the two other friends, had gone and seen Police Academy 4 because we just wanted to forget the sad incident.
Yeah.
So there are many, many reasons why we see films. As Shobu so rightly pointed out, that India is different. India is special because somehow over the last 50 years or 40 years, we have successfully eliminated all other forms of performance and narrative and storytelling as a cultural sort of, exercise pretty effectively. And we've eliminated those. We've eliminated theater. We've eliminated folk songs. We've eliminated other such stuff. And we've sort of kind of put all our eggs in one basket for our collective social sort of, experience, called what we call the entertainment in cinema, amongst all the cultures in the South, in the Hindi film culture, in Bangla, where I come from, my native state or whatever.
Yeah.
It's cinema reigns supreme, So in a country like that, it becomes a little special as to sort of, how we look at cinema. And a release in India and a megastar release in India is always something which is sort of kind of really out of proportion when you compare it to release in US or in the West, in Europe or wherever. Keeping that cultural, uniqueness that India has in mind, I would like this future. I would like a future where we have, and this, Shobu is the expert. He really knows the figures, and I don't actually. And it'll be good to hear what Shobu says. I would like a world where single screens are as much and as many and as numerous as multiplexes. Because I have seen that the weight of running multiplexes actually drives the value of the film down. And in my experience, it pushes up the ticket cost, pushes up many other aspects, and it forces distributors and exhibitors to rely on potato chips instead.
True. Exactly. Sadly, the reality and COVID just accelerated the whole process. Single screens, South may be an outlier, but rest of the country, they are shutting down faster than one probably can say Bahubali. So it's a sad state of affairs. It's purely becoming a real estate.
But single screens are the reason why theatrical cinema is surviving, I think, a little better in the South. And that Shobu will be the judge to sort of, pronounce whether I'm right or not.
Yeah,
is that so?
I agree with Dibakar. I think the strong single screens and the good single screens in South, especially in Andhra and Telangana, I think they are really the reason why I think the films do so well in Andhra and Telangana. I think they're the backbone. I completely agree with Dibakar on his analysis of that. For some reason, we have very strong single screens, and they have contributed significantly to the success of films.
But that's not the case elsewhere, right?
It's not the case, especially in North Heartland, Hindi Heartland. Single screens are not so strong. I mean, the quality of single screens is not so good, is what I understand. And
so increasingly, it's becoming like the Mumbai Milllands. I mean, more a real estate game than anything else.
Yes, but unfortunately, having said that, even Telangana and Andhra, there's a lot of pressure on the single screens for their survival, because the real estate prices are going up. A situation like COVID, back to back for 2 full years, you're not running. They don't have the deep pockets or the wherewithal like multiplex operators. So it is really a tough situation for single screen operators. But I completely agree with Dibakar that it should be multi-layered. It should have we should have single screens. We should have multiplex operators. There is like for example, a film like Radhe, single screens is
its backbone.
Is the backbone. That's where you would enjoy that's where the audience comes to. And even a film like Bahubali, single screens where in Bombay, I was told, Anil Tadani was mentioning, single screens that hadn't seen footfalls were seeing footfalls for Bahubali.
Dibakar, suddenly, I'm sure you're also being asked this question. It seems like it's a face-off. OTT versus theatrical, which is better, which is worse. As a filmmaker, yes, on one hand, subscriptions is definitely shot up in the last 1 year due to lockdown. But would you say watching a movie or a series on streaming wasn't exclusively a replacement for going to the movie theater? It was actually a replacement for everything. And so this is an aberration. We shouldn't read too much into it?
See, I feel that there are certain things that happen which can't be taken back.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when internet came, people had the choice of sort of, surfing 15 minutes in a day and 8 hours in a day. And people took the choice of surfing 8 hours in a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these things sort of, have permanent and indelible changes on human behavior, which you cannot walk back from anymore. There will be an initial surge of people rushing to the theaters because it'll be freedom. But
Yep.
once that levels out, people still will consume a lot more on their phones and devices and laptops than they used to before, because the COVID hiatus has also sort of, given a kind of a push to the internet service providers to increase their bandwidth, exponentially.
जियो पोस्टपेड प्लस के साथ पाइए नेटफ्लिक्स, Amazon प्राइम और डिज्नी प्लस हॉटस्टार at no extra cost.
What will differentiate is, to some extent, the small screen and the big screen. And there, the films that will attract the people to the cinema theaters, to a big screen, will be largely films which offer spectacle, which offer fantasy, and which offer, to put it crudely, sort of, vistas of men and women flying, because that will be a major part of the hook that Shobu so relevantly said, that you need a hook to pull them to the theater and take that journey.
That's true. But one unique challenge, for example, and Shobu, you're the numbers guy. As I said, you have to keep a tab on the commercial aspect, is piracy. I mean, even Radhe, people took to Twitter, to express their disappointment. This, and especially in a market like India, releases like which are purely exclusively on an OTT platform or pay-per-view, they're more prone to piracy. Are they?
Yes, absolutely.
And this affects the commerce, the financial viability of a film.
Yes, especially when you're doing nowadays. Even I was surprised to know that there even Netflix and Netflix content and Amazon Prime content and other OTT content is also pirated. You can go to Telegram and you can watch all of these without paying the subscription fee. So a film like Radhe, which releases on pay-per-view, your content is out there pirated the same day or next day, and for free. So it really is a big problem for the producer, and whether it's a producer or the studio. How do you stay a step above pirated content and still attract people to come and pay the 250 rupees and watch it legally? I think there will be a significant portion of people who will, or not significant, but there will be a portion of people who will watch a pirated copy. But at least when there is a theatrical release, because of the experience, because of the spectacle that certain films offer, there was a need or a calling to go to the theater and watch it. But if there is no theatrical release, and if all you have is a pay-per-view or a digital release, and you have a pirated copy, I think it incentivizes people to watch a pirated copy more. So that will definitely be a challenge.
But do you feel that without functioning theaters, Indian cinema just can't revive? Because even today, many would argue more than 60% of what Indian films earn, at least what they earned in the year 2019, which was supposed to be a blockbuster year, comes from domestic theatrical revenues. And a film's reception in theaters also impacts the price of every other revenue stream: TV, OTT, overseas, music, etc., etc.
Absolutely. I can't imagine a film industry without without the exhibition sector. Because ultimately the big chunk, like you said, 60% of the revenues come from theatrical, and there is no way an OTT platform or OTT companies are going to compensate by acquiring by compensate that 60% in acquisitions. It doesn't get there. I mean, the numbers won't add up, and I think even OTT platforms can't acquire every film that is made, whereas I can still find a window and release my film in theaters. And hope that it does well in theaters, and that will bring additional interest in in OTT and other revenue streams. So I simply can't imagine a world without theaters in India or anywhere in the world.
Many would also argue that the creative liberty perhaps is more on an OTT platform. As a director, you could perhaps experiment more. Are you therefore getting more inclined to lean more towards pure OTT movies, considering the kind of film that you do?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Not at all. I want to take on every problem. I want to take on the problems of theatrical and the OTT both. I'm not satisfied with just taking on one problem. So, no. I want my films to be seen theatrically. When you screen your films theatrically, legally, they have to conform to Indian Film Certification Board's norms, which has become quite standard, and we are all used to it because there are set norms and we know exactly what to do and what not to do, while making the necessary compromise of what we can say and what we cannot say.
When do you expect things to normalize? 1 year, 2 year? When I say normalized, I mean full-fledged outdoor shoots, going back to the movies, if not 100% occupancy, but at least 70-75% occupancy, or there's never going to be that same normal ever again. We have to get real, accept that there's a new normal that is staring at us. Dibakar, you want to go first?
So I think it'll take another year or two to normalize when all kinds of vaccinations come in. And when we have found a formula of the speed of vaccination overtaking the speed of either the spread or the birth of a new mutant.
Mm-hmm.
Only then we'll be able to sort of, get back to complete normal. Till then, it'll be like stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. I'm giving it another year and a half. That's what I feel.
Shobu, I mean, with so much of existing commitments getting rolled over, for established actors, directors, what's your take? I mean, for web series and TV, perhaps you will go back to the floor earlier and, probably, by July, August. And movies still, going back to the theater is still 1.5 years away?
Maybe not 1.5 years. Again, it depends on when if and when there is a third wave, and how well prepared we are to handle the third wave, and how well the vaccinations go on, like Dibakar was mentioning. Based on all these contingencies, I think in terms of shooting, we would, I'm hoping at least, that by July, late July, August, we would go back to the floors, at least for web series and some movies. And in terms of audience coming back, we're hoping to theaters. We're hoping that audience will come back by October, to theaters. That is the immediate short term. But there will be ups and downs. There will be stop starts. And I'm thinking for everything to go back to really normal, we're looking at a year and a half. Is what we're looking at.
Thank you, Shobu and Dibakar. I've got to butt in and stop you guys. We have run out of time completely, in fact, busted all our time limits. But thank you once again for this engaging conversation. My take, a film director friend of mine asked, how come in Tamil Nadu, Master, a Vijay and Vijay Sethupathi thriller, became a monster hit at the box office in 2021 in the middle of a pandemic? Same for Karnan, that is now also streaming on a platform near you. Possibly, regional films are easier to manage logistically than a pan-India release of a Bollywood biggie like say Radhe or Rohit Shetty's Suryavanshi. For the moment though, we can only hope that after 1 or 1.5 years, life will see a new normal, subject to a few external factors of course. But COVID really is having such an indelible experience that several of our behavioral patterns or consumption habits are bound to get upended for good and forever. In movie speak, that could mean that even while mounting a project itself, Producers and directors are likely to fix their go-to-market strategy and not later, as they do now. Theaters for big productions, spectacles with high VFX action, while intimate ones exclusively for OTT or home viewing. But remember this, cleaving of audiences also means theaters need a steady pipeline of big spectacle movies if and when things normalize. But for a business that thrives on high contact, people working together for long period, sometimes in outdoor locations or inside studios, this will also be fraught with high risks till we are absolutely sure. The movie business is thus caught in a vicious circle, and it is impossible to predict what the future will look like. The big stars will survive this scourge. But what about the thousands of technicians, writers, supporting cast and crew? For this movie to play out, we really want a happy ever after. I'm Arijit Barman, and you've been listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was edited and coordinated by Shashwat Mohanty. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. We look forward to your feedback. Write to us at themorningbrief@timesgroup.com. And if you like this episode, please share on your social media handles. We'll really appreciate it. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Thank you for listening and have a great weekend. Goodbye and good luck and stay safe. All the clips used in this podcast belong to their respective owners. You can find the credits in the description.